Hot stove conversations about baseball, history, football, and current events that may leave you saying there's more to consider. Now, here's your host, Jack Moore.
Welcome to another edition of More to Consider. I'm here again with my friend Charles. We're recording on Saturday, September 20. So we are a little bit more than a week out from the Charlie Kirk shooting, and the country is wherever the country is. But when we started this show, like, many times we've talked about, wanted to have sort of a barbershop type of feel, indoor sports bar about a lot of the sports conversations, etc. So in doing that, I don't think either one of us, Charles and I, either one. By the way, welcome, Charles. Good to see you, brother.
Howdy.
All right. And like and subscribe. Go ahead and give the spiel on that. Everybody subscribe, like, leave comments, right?
Yes.
All right. So you and I have been friends, as we've talked about, for 20 plus years. And I know we've always been into the discussions of how do people reach the conclusions they do. It's a big part of what we talk about. We are in batshit crazy land, I think, as far as any kind of logical thought. Everything is partisan. I get it. I mean, I get a lot of sides of the issue. But what we wanted to talk about today, we've discussed it on the phone. When I heard it, when I heard what was going on, first of all, I heard what was said by Jimmy Kimmel. I saw the video. And those we might consider MAGA, right wing, or maybe just sort of sensitive to what's happened, people were lighting up the internet with what he said should have him taken down. So let me just lay this out. I promise I'm going to come back to you here. When something like this happens, a person's gainfully employed in a particular field. When you employ me, there's all types of things that govern the relationship. It can be a contract. It could be an at-will contract. Any day you show up, you can say your services are no longer required. There's the door. We could have a salary. We could have a eat what you kill. There's so many aspects to that, how the structure's set up. So in this particular case, Jimmy Kimmel is a known entertainer with a particular background that has been attacked in some areas, certainly worshipped in some areas, etc. But he goes on and makes comments, and I see them in a couple of different, I can see them in light of a couple of different ways to read it. And of course, I want to get the language exactly right, but in effect, he said that, well, you go ahead and tell me what you think so far, and let me say exactly what he said. What do you think about what's happened? I'll put it that way.
I think people are confusing with what he has said or what other people said with the First Amendment, and they have nothing to do with each other.
Right. And I wanted to go into the road of the First Amendment and how that may apply. I found here real quick. Sure. This is what he said. We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who killed Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. All right, so that's a comment. Crazy. Well, I heard some people on a particular cable news network that was saying that there is a reading on that the people who support Trump, Kirk, in combination, those figures, that they would have definitely, when the shooting was announced, prayed that it wasn't some right-wing extremist that had a problem with Trump. So when he said anything but them, he didn't specifically say they were praying that it be a left-wing, Antifa, whatever. Go ahead, respond.
No, but the evidence that all of the people who are saying that this guy was a MAGA guy, every single one of them has used the same piece of evidence, which was, but his family was. Okay, that has nothing to do with him.
This again, like I say on many shows, it's kind of like there's all these spinning areas you can go into to get into the granular argument of the substance of, and I agree with you. There's so much whatism. We think this is what's really another whole thing that crossed my mind this week. If we saw the behavior of news, the people in the network news, politicians, just general influences in general, and we were of an age to have teenagers in school, and these were our teenagers, we would call them in and say, grow up. I mean, it's really juvenile how everyone's responding in so many different ways. And some of them, I'm sure, everyone that's responding in the ways that they do feel justified in doing so because they feel, but right, it's a spinning mess. I'm just simply saying, when I first saw this, when I first saw him say it, okay, my original interpretation was, hey, we all know it was a MAGA shooter. We all know it. And these people that's how it struck me. But when I heard the explanation, well, another way to read it is he was simply saying those who are Trump supporters, MAGA, Charlie Kirk supporters, etc., are doing everything they can to say it's anything but them. And that's a little bit different spin on the same statement. Go.
Yeah, it's a little bit different spin, but what they're trying to do is, because of what has been happening over the past couple of weeks, is that people on the right have been pointing out that these shooters have all been from a certain type, a certain group. And what they're desperately trying to do is say, no, it's not one of our people. It's one of your people. What he was doing was trying to convince his base that this guy was a MAGA guy. That's what he was doing.
I don't even think that, Charles. I think he was just taking an event which is horrific and really, really has emotionally affected people in a very grave way and just take another shot at it.
What do you mean take another shot?
All right. If you're a thinking human being, you know that there's a certain percentage of the country that's devastated by the death of a 31-year-old in front of his kids and his wife, right?
Right.
That's fair. And of course, we can discuss, and I'm sure we will, the people that are coming out of the woodwork that are saying, I'm a lefty, I was for universal health care, I was for, more taxation. I mean, they could be all those people that, nope, but I'm out, done with the Democrats, that's it. If this is the reaction, the celebration of a young man's death, I'm out. I mean, so you've seen a lot of that too.
Yeah.
How all of this ends up being, or how it plays out politically, what the balances are of what we continue to define as left and right is for anyone to try to figure out. I mean, how it but there's clearly an exodus from the Democrat, what they consider the Democrats, because of the reaction to Kirk's death. So Jimmy Kimmel, whose ratings that I just actually saw a chart. I witnessed a chart that was shown on a cable network, and man, I mean, he has dropped like a rock, as has Disney's stock price. They said it was like 179. The reporter today was like 179-ish, I think, when they started the woke, sort of went the woke direction, and now it's 120. So in a booming stock market, they have gone down drastically as a stock price. Disney's suffering. Okay. So Kimmel's numbers are going down. And you also, according to the analysis of some, it starts with more and more of what you might consider a woke agenda. And you remember, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't want to say anything out of line or misinterpret or say something that's not correct, but I remember, and I just watched the video, he had the incident when he said, go to the hospital unvaccinated. Basically,
right.
You die and the vaccinated person goes in the front of you. And if you die, too bad for you, you selfish, it's like your action of not getting vaccinated is so egregious as to let you die in the waiting room kind of thing. So, that's another one of those said today probably doesn't go over as well as in the time. He certainly had other forces that would have supported that type of view. But I'm saying, if you're that guy, you're late night, you're in the model of Jack Parr and Johnny Carson. There's a history of people. Steve Allen. I'm talking way back, black and white TV. We're talking 50, 60 years ago. I couldn't have imagined any of the members like Parr, Allen, Johnny Carson ever coming on and saying something to the effect that because you made a choice as to whether or not to get a particular shot, you should die. I mean, that wouldn't have been a thing. I wouldn't have imagined a person with a national television audience saying that, nor, given the tragic events of a week ago, I don't see Johnny Carson taking a shot at certain supporters of a political figure in that way. So there's a question of, when you get up that morning, do you have to do this? Do you have to do this?
For him, yes, you do, because your base is forcing you to do it. But this is just Kimmel.
All right.
So, well, and not just Kimmel, but the people who are aligned with Kimmel, they all do and say the same thing. Their actions in their eyes are completely justified because the people on the right are just so bad. So they don't care about repercussions or anything like that. That's why he didn't care about saying what he was saying on the air. It was like, okay, fine. And I'm sure behind closed doors, if you were to ask him, well, you knew you probably could have gotten fired for this. And he would have said, well, so what? Kirk was an ass or something like that. That's how these people think.
Okay.
He's no different.
All right. There's two lanes here. There's two lanes. Maybe multiple lanes, but this is just how my brain works. There could have been Disney in the dressing room saying, hey, Kimmel, if you don't go out there and say some really absurd, very offensive things about Charlie Kirk and his supporters tonight, you're losing your job. We can't take this to Disney. You got to get out there and say something that inflames half the country. Got it. Well, apparently that's not quite what happened, because he said what he said and got fired over it.
Yeah.
So I got to wonder, if we say, well, he feels like he has to because that's his base. Well, his base is dwindling. His numbers, even among young people, is way down. So what he's doing from a very objective standpoint hasn't been working. So I hear what you're saying about he feels like he has to, but for what end?
Well, hold on, but you're saying that his audience is his base. And that's not exactly what I mean by that. In the circles that this guy runs in, there's no way in the world that he could go and say, you know what, I don't think this is right, and so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. He would have been ostracized by his own circle. He had no choice, if he wanted to stay in that circle, to do what he did. That's all he could do. Well, and more than likely, he agrees with it.
Yeah, I think sometimes we're in some kind of simulation. I've talked to that about friends. I don't know that it's... Everything is so crazy. I mean, I assume things like he doesn't. Jimmy Kimmel, and I watched Adam Carolla do his whole thing about the guy I know I love. He's a great guy. They're best friends. I mean, they did shows together, including the Man Show, of course. And he said, everyone's asking me to give a response. If you watch the response of Adam Carolla, it's basically, I love the guy. I only know the guy I love. And this is a thing about celebrities, or that status of being a celebrity. I know a person like you and I mean, we're not that, but no matter what you say on this, I know you the way I know you, right? And you and I know each other. But I think we also try to project in what we do by being on this platform is to say, let's try to get better outcomes. Let's try to get people to act more reasonably. I mean, I think that's what we're saying. So when Carolla was saying, yeah, but you don't know the Jimmy Kimmel I know, he's also having to say, like, in light of the times, to go on there and say something of this nature from a standpoint of I want to survive in the business doesn't appear to be a good move. So there are people who study charts. You got that look again. I'm saying there's people. Let's say that I could possibly be absolutely not political at all. Let's say that I'm Jack, the guy who measures keeping the gig, keeping your audience and your advertisers the happiest. I'm that guy. Let's say I'm that guy. And Jimmy Kimmel comes in and says, hey, I'm thinking about taking a shot at all the Trump supporters tonight, and basically implying that they all know that it was one of them that shot Kirk. I think I'd be like, hey, Jimmy, let's think this through, okay? You may lose some sponsorship. You may lose some advertisers. You're going to piss off half the guys. Not a good, I mean, I could see somebody saying, Jimmy, before you do that, unless someone's goosing him, like you say, that are powerful people, that are like, you're going to land okay on this. And that's what I'm saying, the simulation part. It might all be part of, he gets blown out. They're gaining a lot politically to attack Trump on the fascism more and to get into, the FCC chairman, some comments that were made. So he's getting from this, certain political figures Of the political figures you think on the left, the top which ones have not commented on this, that the world is ending, that the sky is falling because Jimmy Kimmel got let go? So could behind the scenes some people are like, Jimmy, here's $100 million. All right. You're going to be just fine, Jimmy. And you're going to rebound in 2 years once we get back in control. I mean, okay, go ahead. Go.
I don't think it's not a money thing for them. It's not a money thing. It's a cult thing. They're in a cult. That's why they don't care. You're trying to gauge what Jimmy Kimmel and his circle could possibly be doing. You're trying to compare it with actual rational people. They're not.
Right.
So you can't put our standards when it comes to just basic human interaction on people who are in a cult. He can go and say all the crazy stuff that he's saying. Excuse me. He can go and say all the crazy stuff that he's saying within his circle, because they're going to say, yeah, you're right, man. And that Kirk guy was the devil and stuff like what is the echo chamber thing? But outside the echo chamber, it doesn't work.
I'm with you on all that. All right. So let me just go. One other thing I want to read here.
Mm-hmm.
Kimmel drew the ire of FCC chairman Brendan Carr for these comments that we discussed, threatening ABC and parent company Disney to handle the situation lest the government, quote unquote, take action. Nexstar Media Group, which has more than 200 owned or partner stations in 116 U.S. markets, reaching 220 million people, first said it would preempt Kimmel's broadcast before the statement came from ABC. So here's the big key thing. And I want to say this kind of as your history hat, my law hat, and our combination of our interest. This comes up quite a bit, and it came up all during the shutting down of people for things that they may have said during, this last 10 years, but certainly in the last 5, platforms shutting people down for speech that was considered disinformation, misinformation, whatever. They're classifying things that people are saying is not acceptable. And then there was this whole question of, this is where I'm going, the First Amendment, because you're hearing First Amendment. Jimmy Kimmel has a First Amendment right too. Now, let me get this out, because this is what people need to understand. The Fourth Amendment does not apply to your neighbor. Using that, the Fourth Amendment, that one shall have probable cause before the issuance of a warrant. So when the cops want to come check your house, they have to go establish before a magistrate or judge why they have probable cause, believe there's contraband, bad stuff on the other side of the door, whatever. Okay. If they can't come up with the probable cause, make the case to have the reason to go in, they can't kick the door in. You can't just kick the door in and go in and say, well, I got a hunch that something's there. You have to have the establishment of probable cause. However, and this came up in a case that I actually witnessed, police in a particular jurisdiction went to a guy who's kind of a street guy, knows a little bit about drugs, and they're like, hey, why don't you break in Jimmy's house? You go break in Jimmy's house and discover as much evidence against Jimmy as you can. Come tell us about it. Is that a Fourth Amendment violation?
No.
Yes, it is.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. The government told the guy to do it. So yes.
Yeah, they told a guy.
Yeah.
They told a guy on the street. Yeah. He just became a government agent. Now, what would in that situation, the Commonwealth's attorney and maybe the Attorney General's office have to do in defense of that action? Like, well, he's not a cop, the kid that broke in. Now, it's a breaking and entering. It could be a burglary because he might have a felonious intent on the other side of the door, whatever. Okay. But if you direct Billy to go break into Jimmy's house, then when Jimmy has the evidence presented at trial against him, he has a very good argument to say all of this has to be excluded under the exclusionary rule because it was obtained, it was captured, the evidence was taken through an agent of the state that went in, and that would be a Fourth Amendment violation. Now we're back to the First Amendment. So where this is getting, I think, squirrely and worth examination, if an FCC chairman or someone operating with a government agency of regulation were to tell a private group who gets their license through the FCC, like there's supposed to be a controlled airwaves. So when you're licensed by the FCC, you have your duties under the FCC or however Congress determines how that agency or how that means of entertainment or media is going to be regulated. You got to answer to the government. So if a government agent makes a comment like, hey, you guys get in and take care of it, or maybe we're going to have to, would that be a violation of the First Amendment? I think it could be. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to go back to the whole Twitter situation when the government, the FBI, pretty much had an office inside the Twitter headquarters. And they were telling Twitter who they needed to literally censor or blacklist or shadow ban because the government didn't like what they were doing. That's a clear violation of the First Amendment. It's not even up for debate. Excuse me, because the government was essentially forcing a private organization to do something for it that it did not have the power to do itself.
Well, it may have the power to do, but if it did so and exercised that power, it would be a violation of the First Amendment.
So
if the government comes in and shuts down Timmy for saying on whatever platform, I mean, they can make attempts to try to do that, but by doing that's a clear violation. But to backdoor it through the actual agency that oversees the site, in effect, they just made them a government actor. That's the whole argument.
Yeah. So that's what they did.
So this gets back to part of what I was saying about if we were overseeing teenagers. I saw some of the video involving the FCC and a person speaking on its behalf. And I'm kind of like, that's high school. That's kind of, or maybe grade school. Like, don't say things like that. Even if there's, and of course, there's the other argument about this whole thing that why Disney may have, or aspects of Disney may have acted in the way they did, has to do with upcoming attempts to do a merger, which is going to have to pass through certain governmental agencies in its oversight. Go. Yeah.
And so what criteria would the government have, or should I say, what criteria does the government have to determine, what is the criteria for the government to determine if a merger like that is lawful or in the public's best interest?
Damn if I know. I haven't done the research on that. But what I think is being said is, let's say that the FCC chairman made the comment that I just read the quote. I just read the quote, what he's supposed to have said. Let's say that's said, and Disney's like, Disney, whoever, let's call it Parkside Entertainment. Just it could be anybody. If they said to an agent or a chairman of such agency, hey, Pound Sand, we like our JK, our guy, that's our guy. Then they go before this board that has to, for whatever criteria, sign off on this merger. And they go, hey, remember the other day when that same group told us to pound sand on getting rid of that guy? We didn't like what he was saying. Screw him. Merger doesn't go through. Okay. That's the argument.
Yeah, I understand.
And where this gets murky is, could they possibly have had, and all of this, believe me, I know this from a law background. When you're in court, everybody's lying and everybody's telling the truth to some degree. Really, that's really what happens. Like, anytime you have a client, and some clients don't take this well, but if you come in as a client to me, the first thing I have to do is really kind of sift through what you're trying to hide from me. Because it's human nature for you as the client to want to tell me a little bit cleaned up story because, you're ashamed. Or it's the same thing you do with your parents, right? Why is the cookie jar broken? Why are the cookies on the floor? I think the dog hit it. Well, the dog was in the room. That's true, but the dog did. So then the parent has to sift through what's the kid actually telling me. When you practice law, if you believe your client from whatever they say coming through the door, you're in trouble because they're not going to tell you the whole truth. So judges have to sit there and hear. So here's where I'm going. All I'm trying to say, the FCC may possibly have a very valid reason, okay, to block this merger. But once you put this out on the street, if the merger got blocked, people are going to look at it and go, well, that was because of the Kimmel thing. If they had not let him go. Talk to me.
No, I understand all that. But what if Disney just said, we don't want this bad stuff out there, so we're going to get rid of him ourselves before it even gets to the FCC?
Absolutely. And of course, certain.
Well, hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
But I think it's really disingenuous for people to bring the FCC into this in the first place. Honestly, that's just me. Because what they're trying to do is
for what? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You think it's disingenuous for people to bring the FCC into this when the chairman may have made the statement that I just read?
Okay,
he just made it an issue. He just made it an issue.
No, you're right. He did make an issue.
Let me give you another real quick example. Let me just give you another real quick example. When my father was sheriff, when my father was sheriff, okay, he served 7 terms, 28 years. And there was a guy up the road from us. I won't say what jurisdiction. And he was in there about the same amount of time as a sheriff, but in a different jurisdiction. And this happens all the time when you're a rural sheriff in a small county, whatever. One of the deputies and a crew decide, hey, I think we'd be better than the sheriff. They didn't want to run against the sheriff, etc. My father actually had this in a court case. He fired a guy one time. He fired a guy because he found out the guy was doing some illegal things within the office. And he was backtracking. He was investigating the guy. When he got the goods, he called him in and said, hey, your services are no longer required. And the guy goes, whoa. So in his criminal case of deputy, his defense attorney said, Sheriff, why did you fire him? He goes, I don't have to tell you that. And then he goes, Judge, direct the sheriff to answer this. And he said, read the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia. All deputies work at my pleasure. The reason he never gave him a reason why is he could have set up a grievance. So get back to the other sheriff. The other sheriff has a deputy, and 2 of his other deputies go together, campaign against him, and try to win the sheriff's office. Okay? All right? He calls the 3 of them in January. The sheriff returns to the seat. He wins and defeats his deputy and the 2 buddies. And he goes, you son of bitches are all fired. I know you ran against me and you went out there. And they ended up winning a settlement against the county for wrongful discharge.
Right.
And my dad's like, all he had to do was say, Jimmy, Billy, Timmy, you're gone. But why? You're gone. That's it. All he had to do was say your services are no longer required. They may have in their mind known. This is a key point. When the FCC guy says, get rid of Kimmel, or we may have to take action, you just set this bullshit up. That's exactly what I'm saying.
No, I agree with you on that. Don't say it.
If you're in a position of authority like that, don't say what you don't have to say.
No, I agree with you.
That's my only point. If you're the sheriff, don't tell the 2-3 guys in the room why they were fired and now have a grievance filed against you for wrongful discharge and they said it was political. You're pissed at us because we ran against you. Yeah. And all he had to do was tell him to go home.
I agree with you on that. And Trump really needs to bring all of his people in. This would be the pot calling the kettle black here.
He's the biggest part of the problem.
Well, I understand. He needs to bring them all in and say, or Vance or whoever, shut up. Just shut up.
I don't disagree.
Because I think a lot of these issues they wouldn't be issues if the people didn't run their mouth. And the FCC administrator or commissioner or whatever, he caused this problem even if there wasn't a problem by just saying what he said. He could have been a rogue guy just saying, yeah, they need to get rid of him and blah, 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 blah. But the thing is, the FCC has no intentions on doing this based off of what Kimmel did or basing the decision off of what Kimmel did. But him being the head of the agency, dude, you just really screwed the pooch on this one. And you should have, kept your mouth closed. But as you said, he didn't, and now they're in a mess right now.
That brings us to the key point. That brings us to the key point. And gosh, it's the very thing I talked about months ago. I did a show with a buddy of mine. It's a baseball show. But he's kind of follows politics. And he was saying to me, and I've mentioned this on other shows, he was saying to me off the air, he goes, man, what about the politics today? I saw somebody on cable news network the other day blatantly lie. I mean, it was obvious, and it became so known. Or they repeated a good people on both sides or whatever it was. It was one of those kind of things. And my friend said, somebody in the government's got to come in and clean up this mess. I said, whoa. And this is why I said, no. I said, they are in the toilet. The very people you're talking about, people don't believe them anymore. Let them talk. Yep. Let them talk. So my point all along is you can't act as if you're in the government. You're trying to. So getting back to Kimmel, the things he said, I think are tone deaf. I think it pisses off half the country. I think people maybe in Des Moines, Iowa were like, screw that guy, I'll never let. And of course, there was a lot of calls in apparently at regional places throughout the country where they're broadcast. Hey, get this son of a bitch off the air. I don't like what he said. Okay. That's the market deciding. Then if you're the parent company and you're in the boardroom, you're like, he's down 37% since yesterday. And a lot of people are upset and we have sponsors or advertisers getting ready to pull, that's a board decision. Get them the hell off the air then. Get them the hell off the air. You let that happen organically. That is a business choice. And that parent company has every right or authority to do so. But when a government actor comes in and makes a comment, and now they've lit up the whole left side of the political spectrum with, he's a Nazi, he's a this is what Hitler did. He tried to make sure that the media didn't say things he didn't like. Well, it looks like that.
Yeah, I agree. It does.
As kind of a neutral observer, because then Trump comes, oh, he was terrible anyway. He was awful entertainer, whatever. Why are you saying any of this? I mean, I do think what's fair game, and then the next thing was he made the criticism of Trump. He handled Kirk's death about the way the death of a goldfish or something to that nature. But what he showed, I don't think was doctored in any way. A person in the White House lawn said, how are you handling your grief over Charlie Kirk's death? And he goes, I don't want to misquote, but it was basically, we're getting by. And he goes, hey, by the way, have you seen the ballroom we're building? It's taken 150 years for the ballroom. They showed that and then made light of it. That Trump turned the question of how was your grief immediately into, and he goes, and that's like and then Kimmel's comment was, that's the fourth stage of grief, construction. Did you see that part?
No, I haven't seen that.
That was but he based it off of a film where I would say, now maybe Trump wanted to divert away from it because he just didn't think it was the right thing or right time. They ask, how are you getting over Charlie Kirk's death? And he just he makes a small comment, blows past it, and gets into the construction. So Kimmel made fun of that too. Go.
Well, I was just listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about that Trump doesn't help when it comes to a situation when he does that. And the situation, what should I say, the comment that they were focusing on was when Trump, he keeps saying that, and I don't want to go into this, but I'm just going to use this as an example. He keeps saying that the Epstein thing it's a hoax. It's just the Democrats wanting to push this thing that essentially doesn't exist. And the people on the podcast, and I agree with him 100%, he said he's digging himself into a hole by trying to say something that pretty much everybody knows that there's something there. Why are you just going to turn a blind eye to it? And the example that you just gave with somebody asking him about Charlie Kirk and him saying, hey, but that's a really nice ballroom over there. It's the same thing. And it's not like Trump isn't capable of answering questions. We all know that he is. But when you deflect like that, it does make you think that you're hiding from something. Or are you hiding something? Not hiding from, but you're hiding something from us. Because the answers to the questions have nothing to do with each other. It really doesn't. And he's better than that, honestly. The guy is definitely capable of answering questions.
Well, I'm actually looking at, give me 1 second. I want to make sure I'm right on exactly what was said.
Well, when it comes to Kimmel and his circle that he's in, I'm going to say that the people that are around him are saying that ABC is bad, FCC is bad, they just don't like you telling the truth. That's what they're saying. They're not having any rational, logical thought. It's just essentially all emotional, and because you're part of our cult, we're going to agree with you 100%. Now, you don't disagree with us, because if you do, you're out the cult. And we've seen that 1,000 times. Bill Maher right now pretty much is out of the cult because of the things that he's been saying over the past couple of years now. And he's just like,
I've always kind of liked him. Yeah, I think all right, here it is. I'm going to read it as it goes. How are you holding up over the last 3.5 days? I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all these trucks. They just started construction on the new ballroom. I don't know what that is. And again, how people grieve. Right. It looks kind of awkward.
Yeah,
it does look awkward. But anyway, Kimmel makes a joke out of it, which I think is off color. I think, is it inflammatory? And I don't think it's that. I mean, he's trying to look for kind of word pictures to describe it. It's kind of ugly, but I do think if you're anti-Trump, and that's where you get a lot of your comedy from, he kind of handed you that one, and by going from how are you holding up over the death, I think pretty good. Now, by the way, there's a construction over there. It does look awkward and all the rest. And there was something else you were saying earlier about Epstein, Trump. Bondi, Cash Patel, all of these players that made a lot of loud promises during the time they ran for office. I don't think the Trump administration looks good at all right now. And every time they keep downplaying certain things, as you're saying, reality is the perception. It really becomes that. I mean, there may be something really great going on. And sometimes it's tough. And God, I just thought about, my family history, et cetera. But I do remember after my dad passed, my sister told me a story I'd never heard before. It was the last time he ran for sheriff. The drug thing in the county was becoming more and more of a political issue. So he did a debate with the guy that was running against him in his last election. And the guy hit him with, why aren't you doing more about drugs, blah, blah, blah. And he really didn't say much in the response. And my sister was going out campaigning with him. This was over 35 years ago. And my sister said, she told me this after his death. I said, Dad, they're really hitting you. Why don't you have more to say? And he goes, Mary, trust me. I just can't say anything, or I won't. She goes, but you really lost political point, whatever. So he wins, though. He wins again. And then after he retired as sheriff, he was talking to her. He goes, you remember that thing that time I was in that debate? Yes. He goes, well, we had a bunch of people that had infiltrated a major drug operation in the county. And there were agents out there literally at risk of dying. I mean, of being discovered. I knew in that environment, I could not say what I knew about what was behind the scene. I could have puffed up and said, yeah, now I had to shut up and not get into the issue. And if I'd lost the election over it, so be it. But I wasn't going to put those people in jeopardy.
I get it.
And she was like, yeah. And she said, in the moment, I was mad at him. So I say all that to say, maybe Trump, Bondi, Patel, maybe they all have some Vance. Maybe they have something stewing when it comes to some of the things such as the Epstein files. Maybe they know something we don't, and it'll all come out in the wash, and they're bravely, but it doesn't look good. I mean, I think I totally agree with you. Whatever the hell is going on, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, the people in the podcast are saying the same thing, actually. That it could be something that they just can't divulge to the public. Okay, I get it.
Maybe ever, or maybe right now.
Right. Maybe we don't know. And so long as something's done, I think that's really what most people care about. But don't you have a hard out?
Yeah, I got a hard out.
Oh, okay.
We're going to get ready to get going. But I wanted to, so I think in summation, what we're talking about is, once again, this death of Charlie Kirk and what it is exposed about our nation, I think is both good and bad. I mean, I think that there has been some things that have come out where there have been a number of people who have kind of rethought how they see things. I'll say this real quick, too. Have you seen Van Jones on the text message he didn't see until after Kirk was dead?
No.
Kirk had come out with the comments that he believed that the Charlotte, the young man that stabbed the girl from Ukraine in Charlotte, North Carolina, did so for racial reasons. And then Van Jones came back, you don't have that information. And they got really ugly in exchange back and forth. And Van Jones is on scene saying this. He was with Anderson Cooper. And they're sitting, he goes, you've got a really interesting story to tell. He goes, yeah. Right after Charlie Kirk was dead. And he goes, I was pretty devastated because, as much as we went back and forth, I look on my phone and I realize he went on X. He messaged me on X and said, hey, brother, how about we have a talk about this and let's go ahead and be reasonable. And if we disagree, we can still break bread. We can be friendly about it, something to that. And Jones was like, this really struck me. Like, he goes, man, I wanted to beat him in the argument, not see him dead. Like, he's saying, like, so America, you have to wake up. To Van Jones' credit, I mean, it's really kind of moving. But he said, this is what I want people to understand is this is who Charlie Kirk was. I mean, Charlie Kirk literally reached out to me and said, and they had ugliness back and forth. But he was offering him to go on his show. And he goes, well, I wouldn't have wanted to platform him, so I would have wanted him to come on my show instead. However, that's where all this is left. Literally the day before he dies, he X'd him gave the X message on the 9th, and he found out on the 10th, hours after he was killed. He didn't see it until then. Yeah. Yeah. And that's something. But
yeah.
Yeah. And it just shows how volatile things are, because a week prior, Van Jones is saying some really ugly things about Kirk's response to things. And a week later, he's dead. And then he finds out the guy reached out. It's all really, really sad. And this whole turn the temperature down argument and all that can be discussed in many different ways. But there is something going on. I hope that in everything that's happening, people are starting to be more reasonable. Well, it's yet to be seen. What do you got for me going out?
No, that's about it, man. It's just a lot to think about. I just hope that things get better faster. I hope they get better before the asteroid comes. So,
do you know what day the asteroid's coming?
No, we don't know. Don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll be on the lookout for that. Is there an app that we can get that gives us progress on that?
There might be. I'll do some research in the next podcast. I'll give you an update on that. Yes.
All right. Be ready for that. All right. Love you, brother. Yes. Appreciate you coming on.
All right,
man. Talk to you soon. All right. Bye. Thanks, everybody. Again, please like, subscribe, and make comments. Give us some.
Yes.
All right, brother. Take care.
You too.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like the show, subscribe and hit your notification button to get an update when we post another episode. See you soon.